purchases.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the July 16th Board of Selectmen's meeting, and we'll open up with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. We'll start with if anyone's here for open forum. Please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Hi, my name is Michael Furnett, and I would want to read a letter written by our attorney representing No Fossil Fuel, and just, it's a 5-minute letter, but I want to take just 2.5 minutes of this letter just to, get our thoughts out. And I'll submit this letter to you. Dear Madam Chairman and members of the board, in the spring of 2010, the town of Kingston became a trendsetter when, by an almost unanimous vote, the citizens of Kingston became leaders in the movement to help abate global warming. The persistence of your Green Energy Committee in doing the right thing, studying in depth the issue of global warming, holding over 100 public hearings to gather public input on solutions, its public outreach and transparency through its utilization of the internet set the course for a transition to green, and then this board's leadership helped make it a reality. If people didn't participate, it is because they chose not to, not because the information wasn't available. As a direct result of your efforts, 2 wind turbine companies participated following the permit process, lawfully received permits to construct their turbines in the now designated turbine zone, expended huge amounts of money, and ultimately they began to produce green, reliable wind energy to the benefit of Kingston residents and the citizens of the Commonwealth. The O'Donnell turbines alone produce enough green energy to power 600 homes, and a soon-to-be-constructed solar facility in Dartmouth will make Silver Lake Regional High School a green school as well. In a twist of irony, some citizens who chose not to participate in the green energy process are now leading a charge to derail the Kingston progress by alleging, without specifics as to time and place on the complaint forms provided by the town, unsubstantiated, slanderous accusations against these companies. Indeed, recently a so-called wind report produced by a litigant in a case against O'Donnell and the town became a central story. Despite the ongoing litigation, he was permitted to present that report to town officials without any independent verification, and he did so, creating again an environment that incited a limited but loud outcry with demands, threats, and unlawful requests to town officials to, quote-unquote, shut them down. Subsequently, the DEP wrote in a letter after their review of the study that the study was flawed in 3 significant and distinct respects. That response has been filed with this board. Likewise, on Flickr, a recent presentation presented to the Board of Health was admittedly flawed and underfinanced. The reporters themselves, in response to questions from board members and the public, admitted that they used in their data suppositions that created glass homes, always perpendicular to the turbines, that were gauged as running 24 hours per day, and that foliage and obstructions were not factored. Flawed studies are not insubstantial because they incite the public with inflammatory misinformation that can, in and of itself, create fear and political hysteria in a community. A good place to start in an attempt to defuse the incendiary bomb before it consumes the confidence of the people of your great town is the reports posted online by a very capable town planner, specifically that done by the Mass DEP and Department of Public Health, the Kingston Wind Turbine Health Impact Study, completed in January of 2012. And, this is me paraphrasing our attorney. As I've stated publicly before, we want to work with the town, and we have confirmed our openness to working with DEP to develop a factual wind data analysis model, and we want to be a good neighbor. In conclusion, the long-term threats to Kingston's well-being is not that related to wind energy, but unleashed wind, intensifying storms, coastal erosion, and an aging nuclear power plant. In a small but heroic way, the citizens of Kingston have done their part to stop these calamities, and that cause should not be derailed by political hysteria. Very truly yours, Jack Units, General Counsel, the O'Donnell Turbines.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If you have any questions, you know where to find me.
I'd just like a copy of the letter for the record.
Absolutely, and it's right here.
And I'd see with the keys.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Anybody else here for open forum? Okay. I just want good news. We have successfully negotiated a contract with our new town administrator, Mr. Robert Fennessy, and he will be starting August 1st. I just want to share with you a few of the highlights of the contract because it is a public document, and I know people are always curious what we have in there. And basically, just from a salary perspective, he's been hired for a 3-year term. The first year, it's $107,500. The second year is $110,000, and the third year would be $112,500. And it's actually somewhat performance-based. We have given Mr. Fennessy the opportunity to open up his contract in each of the 3 years to discuss a higher salary based on performance if the Board of Selectmen feel it's warranted. We also have, we will be establishing jointly with Mr. Fennessy goals and objectives that we'll give to him by September of this year, 2013, and will be yearly. Vacation, he gets 2 weeks. After 6 months, he gets another week, and then after that, 4 weeks. And Mr. Fennessy has agreed to basically dissolve his full-time law practice. He may have some weekend business, but he's dissolving that, and he won't be participating in any activities that will affect his ability to be a town administrator for the town of Kingston. And with him coming on board, just to say that no fossil fuel, Mary O'Donnell did ask for an appointment tonight, and I said no. And the reason I said that is because I would like to get Mr. Fennessy on board, get him educated on the pros and cons, the different opinions on both sides of our energy discussions, get him involved, up to date with what's going on. And that's why I felt to limit the further discussions on that until he's on board. So it's good news he's starting, and we all look forward to working with him. Dennis?
I'd just like to add a bit of good news. The school committee is returning to the town $119,000. That was as a result of good fortune, good management, and good weather. And also, we came in this year under budget by $27,000. That money has been reserved and put aside toward a new energy-efficient boiler in the schools, which should further reduce the cost of operation and return to the taxpayers increased money. We've done good.
Yes, that's always good news. And just for those who may not be aware of it, Silver Lake Regional School is doing strategic planning process, and they're reaching out. We'll be doing different surveys and studies through the high school. And just to be aware that if you're not a parent, they are doing a study on what the needs are for Silver Lake going forward. So that's something that they'll be working on actively. And the library had a big cleanup this weekend, and I was talking to Debbie Grace and asked her to put a little something together so we can thank those people who were involved. And forgive me if I say someone's name wrong, but this is what Debbie was gracious enough to give me. It is believed that on this past Saturday, scouting history was made in Kingston when over 30 Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts, and Boy Scouts came together with their parents to help landscape the library. The families gave 3 hours of their time to weed, plant, and mulch the grounds, an enormous undertaking to say the least. Michael Kelleher pruned and shaped the majority of the shrubs and trees on the grounds, saving the library the expense of hiring professional landscapers. In particular, there was a birch tree that was damaged by the winter storms and now has a new lease on life. Sean Verano shaped and trimmed the hedges in the middle of the island, giving it a tidier appearance. There were 3 Boy Scouts to tackle the invasive bamboo shrubs that were blocking parking spaces and helped guide the younger scouts in the cleanup process. Not to mention the dads who hefted wheelbarrow after wheelbarrow of mulch to the various beds. We would like to thank the following families: the Murrays, Turners, McKinnons, Grabowskis, Graces, Curtins, Quinns, Riddles, Errings, Veranos, Erlandsons, Ryan, Andrew, and Colin from Troop 199, the Slatterys, the Corkerys, Fays, Hines, McGinnis, Kelleher's, Tassaneries. And the library is a major town building and landmark and should be given the proper care and attention due to its contents and dedicated staff. The Scouts are hoping to continue with other combined efforts around town. Several scouting troops already maintain flower beds and the war memorials around town, not to mention all the individual projects that Scouts have done to benefit the land and community organizations. Our Scouts do this not for personal recognition, but to give back to their community that has given them so much already. Thank you to all of those, and the continued support to the library by Ken Nickerson of Nectel, who helped to repair the telephone systems just recently damaged in the thunderstorms. Bob Arnold of Arnold Refrigeration, who donates seasonal maintenance of the library's HVAC system for years now. And just recently, on June 8th, the First Parish volunteers decorated the bulletin board. And this is stuff that I think everybody should be aware of and to share. And if we don't know of something, please send something in and let us know. You deserve a pat on the back for what you're doing, and we'd like to give people credit where credit's due. So thank you again to everybody who helped that we know of, and for those who we don't know of, thank you as well. 7:15, so I guess we could start. First, anybody else have any other announcements? Anybody?
I do for later.
Okay. First appointment, we have Paul Basler here. He's going to give a few updates on projects in town.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board. I'm here to give you a couple updates on projects that are going on throughout the town. I guess we'll start with the transfer station, so that's on the board. Contractor Lawrence Lynch has come in starting about the beginning of June, and they have already started making some major changes to the transfer station. According to this picture right here is 2 hoppers that have the trash. Lawrence Lynch has already excavated about from this line here back and installed approximately 50 or 60% of the infiltrators needed for the leaching fields for the sewer department. That whole excavation has taken place here. They've cleared all the tree lines out here. If the residents know now, all your recycle areas are up here right now until this whole project is completed, and we'll move them back as we go forward. So the tree line's been cleared. It's been graded here. They've cleared the tree lines over here. They've cleared the tree lines all the way up here. And they stay away from Pulpit Rock, as the plans say they should. The contractor's telling me that they're anticipating an October 1st completion date on the entire transfer station project. As a matter of fact, today I was looking at pictures of stone blocks, so we know what the retaining wall is going to be made out of. Other than that, that's all I can give you on the transfer station update. I know it's for ease of use, it's pretty tight right now. We have a lot of stuff stuffed in a very small corner. I beg for the patience of the residents to keep recycling as much as they can during the construction, and when we're done, recycling will be a lot easier. Traffic flows around the transfer station will be a lot easier, which hopefully will encourage more recycling at the end of the day. That's all I have at the transfer station at this time.
Do you expect any closure of the transfer station?
I do. As a matter of fact, 2 weeks from yesterday, July 29th till August 2nd, the transfer station will be closed. My employees have been handing out flyers to the residents that use the transfer station on Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. If the residents of town use the transfer station on the weekends, this closure will not impact you. We'll close Sunday night after the transfer station is closed, and we'll reopen the following Saturday. Once again, it is from July 29th till August 2nd. So from 2 weeks ago yesterday. I've been selling stickers at this office, and everybody's coming in. I've been telling them July 29th, August 2nd. We have to shut it down because there's more infiltrators coming all the way up to about 8 to 10 feet away from the bottom of these compactors. So in order to help the contractor do his project, plus if we had to close it, there would be no way for the residents to come in and do their trash. So the best idea we had was to close it. It expedites their process. They're thinking it's going to take 2 to 3 days, which transfer stations close Thursdays and Fridays. So the minor inconvenience is only going to be to the residents that attend there Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Once again, July 29th, August 2nd, it will be closed.
Now, in October, when the estimated completion date, all what we see there will be done. The containers will be there for the different divisions of recycling.
Yes. The big item here in J, that's the cardboard compactor. It was my opinion that would be centrally located. Residents will come in and they'll start pulling into these parking spaces. Cardboard's in the middle. There'll be 2 co-mingles, 2 newspapers for ease of recycling. Over here is a scale. I would sometime in October I'm going to be in front of the board to discuss fees for the scale. Right now, for the construction debris, we charge a half a load or a full load for a pickup, which is very subjective. Once the scales are installed, I'll come up with a formula for a per pound price. The resident will come onto the scale fully loaded. They'll get weighed. They'll go to dump their C&D. They'll get back on the scale, get weighed again. There will be a ticket, computerized ticket, saying what the difference of the weight is. Difference of the weight times the price is going to be what the resident is going to be charged. In most cases, it should save the residents money. A lot of big, bulky items, cabinets, they don't break down, so when they show up at the transfer station, my employees say, well, that's a full load. Weight-wise, well, probably not. When we're done sometime in October, that whole thing will be automized or automatic. It'll be a lot less subjective. It'll be per pound. I think that's all I can tell you at this time. And if I could just say, right, Madam Chairman, this Saturday is brush chipping day at the transfer station. I still haven't figured out where we're going to have brush chipping take place. So any residents that want to come to the transfer station with their brush, please bear with us. We're going to try to find a place to get you off out of the beaten way so we don't interrupt the recycling and the average resident going for the trash. It's going to be tough. It's tight for the next 3 months. My employees know it. I know it. Pretty much most of the residents are on board with it. Please bear with us. When we're done in October, it'll be such a much better place to come visit and do your recycling and trash disposal. If there's any questions, Highway Department's phone number is 781-585-0513. Okay, that's the transfer station update. The next update is the Elm Street Bridge update. I was in contact with Nick Adams from Mass DOT District 5 about the bridge. He has submitted to me the following. He indicates that the completion date is scheduled to be October 22nd of 2013, which is only a few months away. Unfortunately, the contractor has requested an extension until March of 14. And the reason for that extension is they were having some issues with the drilling of the C-can shafts on the north side. And C-can shafts are going to be what supports the abutment wall, which is going to support the deck, which is going to support the bridge. So they're very vital, and there was a contractor was having issues with that. The contractor is working extended hours. He has been coming in on Saturdays and staying late during the week, trying to make up some of the lost time. If the contractor, in my opinion, is all it is in my opinion, because it's not my job, it's Mass DOT. If the contractor is going to request an extension, chances are he's going to get an extension. Whether it's till March of 14, we won't know until Mass DOT makes that call. But it is scheduled to open according to their schedule on October 22nd. The likelihood of that happening is probably slim and none. If in the next few weeks, few months, I get an update on the date, I'll be more than glad to pass it on. We can put it on the website. But it looks, standing up here tonight, looks like it's going to be closed until March of 14.
Okay.
That's what it is. And the last reason I'm here in front of the board tonight is we need to discuss some issues at the transfer station with sickle sales. Let me first start by saying that most of the residents, a majority of the residents of the town of Kingston that use the transfer station are very joyful, they're very courteous, polite, and very respectful to the employees. Those are the residents we love to deal with. We make it light, we joke, they do their stuff, they leave, everybody's happy. Like I said, that's the majority of the residents. Unfortunately, we have a handful, I'm going to say somewhere between 20 and 30, that feel that they're above the rules. The rules are clearly states on when people come to get their sticker, the rules are pretty clear. The sticker goes on the bottom left-hand side of your windshield, folks. It's easier for access for my guys to see it, to make sure that everybody's paid their stickers fees for the following year, so we have nobody going up there dumping trash for no cost. Once again, unfortunately, we have people that refuse to do so. My employees are getting tired of being harassed verbally, threatened physically. There is no need, and I'm sorry, it's trash. Sergeant Muffet is well aware of an issue we had last week. Residents are making statements against my employees. There are video cameras to prove those statements false. I'm looking to the board. We have to toughen up this. We do. I don't know of any other job where people just blast you and there's no repercussions. Profanity. I've had residents tell employees, we're going to meet you outside the gate after work. I don't think anybody should be subjected to that kind of harassment. Right now, the policy states there is really no policy on this, because in my line of work, customers are always right, and that's the way it used to be. It's not that way anymore. I'd like to come up with a proposal that has some teeth and has some significance. I don't want to embarrass these residents. Some of these residents are well known throughout the town. But the demeanor with which they approach my employees has got to stop. We are the only transfer station in the town of Kingston. We are not the only provider of trash removal services. If you open the phone book, there are plenty of private companies that will come to your front door and pick up your trash. It's a lot more expensive than $140 that the town of Kingston charges. But enough is enough here. I've been called certain names which I have thick skin, I'll take some of the heat, but the rules are the rules.
Yeah.
And it's time to enforce these rules.
The incident that we're talking about, I won't talk about the incident itself, but what it appears is that a resident has risen to the level of criminal behavior, assaultive behavior, threatening behavior, and that's what we talked about. At some point, it should be unacceptable. So what can the transfer station do? Should they restrict people's dumping privileges? Should there be something maybe as far as a bylaw, 21D violations? What's an effective way we can do to let people know it isn't acceptable, no matter where you work in town? You can't, whether you work here or not, that's assault, that's criminal behavior. So he came to us looking for help. And I think it's something that we should do, especially if there's 30 residents. If that's just a number that's out there, that's a lot of people. And we all know, just at the last Selectmen's meeting, the last thing I said, renew your stickers because it's Hell Week. Yeah. And that's what we all call it. It's a difficult time. Frustrations are high. You load your truck with trash and you get to the dump and you are turned away. Nobody's happy about that. And everybody realizes that. But when it rises to the level of criminality, that's unacceptable. So what do? Do we revoke privileges? If we do that, you're going to get somebody dumping it in another section of town. So that's, I think, the essence of what he wants today. He's looking for help from us. How can we put some teeth to their organization to help them, to remind people that we need to be civil or there are ramifications?
Dennis?
Yeah, I like Mr. Bassler's recommendations. Basically, we have a code of conduct more or less for our town employees, and I think the guys at the transfer station do an excellent job adhering to that. We also have an expectation from the public of a certain degree of civility and common sense And those few that can't abide by that, I think suspension of privileges and a warning, suspension of privileges, and if they continue that conduct, you can go do your trash somewhere else. We're not going to take trash talk at the transfer station.
No, it's all good. I mean, Paul, you're right, and Sue, I mean, for anything to reach that level is unacceptable, and Paul has made the recommendations to send a written warning, and if the behavior continues after the written warning, then to revoke the privileges, and up to 6 months, and it could be permanently depending on the frequency of it all. So I'm good with, now you mentioned 21D. What do you think about 21D?
I like it maybe in addition to, only because I think that if we start revoking people's privileges, we are going to see trash somewhere else in town. You're going to see it up in Rabbit Road. You're going to see it they're going to bring it somewhere else.
Can you explain what a 21D is?
21D is, it allows the town to enforce the bylaws. There's a lot of different things that we issue 21Ds for. I don't know about other departments, but the police department does. If you violate an alarm, then a 21D it's the name of the form that goes out, and it allows us to civilly fine an individual. The animal control, it's a 21D. It's a civil fine, and if the fine isn't paid, then it can become criminal. It goes to the court, and you bring the person in front of the court. So it has some teeth. It's not criminal to begin with. I would just fear. I like it in over revoking privileges, because I just would foresee that we're going to see trash all over town. Okay. I would be afraid of trash showing up all over town. And you know what? It's not going to be a nice, clean, white trash bag. It's going to be trash that's been sitting there for 3 weeks and 3 months, and it's going to be a mess.
Well, in the past, we have had issues of trash being disposed of in various areas of town. Mm-hmm. The good thing about that is they leave their mail right in the trash, so it makes finding them who did it a lot easier.
And they have no problem going through the trash. I've seen it.
My proposals I wrote to you guys last Thursday is kind of a progressive, but I mean, I had issues today with residents. The problem is, and I talked to Sue about this last week, I don't want to get in a confrontation with, it's a he said, she said kind of, well, your employee approached me, and it just exaggerates, keeps going up and up and up. Today, my employee told the resident, you need to leave. The resident said a few choice words. I'm doing what I want. You can't touch me. Now, my employee can get up, run up the trailer, call 911, get one of Plymouth, Kingston's finest down there. That resident's gone. There's no reaction to that type of action. What do we do? Okay, I can send them a certified letter. Okay, well, if you know, if some people get a certified letter, I don't want that letter. They know what it is. I don't know how to address the immediate.
I like nothing better to embarrass stupid people.
Well, and I think that we could.
I really don't. And what I would love to do is see if there's some way that we can invite those people in here when that happens. They can have their little hearing in front of the whole town so they can explain their actions.
I mean, we're talking.
Really, it's ignorant.
Turn on his mic.
They just. I must.
We're talking two different
brother,
issues.
I got my voice back and I wasn't on. Anyway.
The issue we have two different issues. The issue
I would really like to see if the board, if there's some way we could do that. Yeah. Give them a public hearing, come in here and explain your actions last week at the transfer station. I mean, they're all citizens of Kingston. They can come in here, and if they think they have a better idea as to how it should be run, perhaps they should share it with all of us. You know, the thing about the stickers, that's my pet peeve, this people that have 15 of them on there. I mean, that's a violation, isn't it? The registry says you can't do that.
They had an employee of the dump going out scraping stickers. So every year they evolve a little bit more.
Good. I get nothing but praise for those guys up there. They do a fantastic job, and you shouldn't be treated the way they are. And if we can help in any way in bringing people in here to explain their inappropriate actions, I'd love to see it.
Dennis, then Sandy.
Yeah, I actually think that Selectman Aruda has an excellent idea. We're talking about conduct, civilized conduct when you're in a public place. The transfer station it's operated on behalf of the public. If you cannot express yourself in an appropriate fashion, I have no problem with suspending services until you come to a hearing before this board. We determine whether or not we do it with dangerous dogs. We should do it with dangerous consumers.
Well, like Sue said, I wouldn't want to see it suspended because then it's going to end up all over Kingston, and then someone else is going to get their trash.
But, okay.
I'd just rather have them come right in here and...
Madam Chairman, if I may, I'm a transfer station operator. This guy has been harassing me for 3 weeks. I tell him, you can't dump, and now we're going to come in front of the Board of Selectmen. He decides he doesn't want to come. What is the...
Right.
You know, I'm all for...
We'll have the hearing in absentia. We'll put a little cardboard thing up there with a blank face on it, and this is Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so. They didn't want to come to this tonight to explain their side. Really.
Sandy?
I think we can do a combination of all three ideas. I think you can combine Paul's statement here with what Sue wanted to add about the 21D, and that could be in section number 2. And you could add Dickie's idea of the hearing also in section number 2, and have some kind of a hearing with us. Mm-hmm. If it escalates above town administrator or representative of the police department. But I don't think they should be able to get away with this kind of behavior at all, ever. No one should be threatening anybody for any reason. And if we don't take the sticker away, we have no teeth. So I think that's an absolute necessity.
What Sandy's saying, the use of the transfer station is a privilege. It's not a right. If you abuse that right, like if I go into a store and I start unmercifully harassing the clerk, that store manager will invite me to leave and never return. I may shop somewhere else. The same thing. I don't want to be held blackmailed by, well, if we don't let them... No, it's a person. That transfer station sticker and a new driver can still get in. That person with his behavior can't. So we're not denying a household the ability to dump the trash. We're denying the ability of an individual to come into the transfer station and harass our employees.
So,
one thing I do want to put out there, because in the situation that I'm dealing with, the resident believes that they had a gripe and addressed it at that point. I just want the public to know, if you do have a problem at the transfer station isn't the appropriate venue. If you have a problem with any employee in any office in the town, you bring it to the department head. Don't get angry. Don't get involved in any confrontation, no arguing. I mean, the simple thing is to go to their boss. And that's the appropriate way to handle a situation. It prevents the escalation of anger. I mean, think of it. Your truck is full of trash. Nobody wants to be turned away. But I understand the anger behind that. But again, it's not the appropriate venue. So I would remind the public of that.
So basically what we're looking at is, if I have the order correctly, a warning, and I'm putting in this order because if the 21D needs a bylaw, right? So that won't be till next time. So for now, we can do the warning and then a hearing. If you don't show up for the hearing, then next town, whatever, we can do a 21D or something to that combination. Yes.
I don't think he should have to wait. If Paul has a good handle on things,
yeah.
and so do his people down at the transfer station, if they think that someone's privileges need to be immediately revoked, we should give them that authority, then have the public hearing if they appeal it.
I agree with that.
I suspect that...
How do you feel, Paul?
This is a lot of information to digest at this time. Once again, it's tough. It's tough for me as a department head because my regular work schedule is Monday through Friday. Most of these incidents are happening on Saturdays and Sundays. I haven't talked to Chief Splain about my proposal about getting an officer involved. I haven't sat down and talked to Nancy about getting the town administrator involved when Mr. Fennessy shows up.
Okay.
I thought tonight we could bring it to the forefront and maybe throw some ideas and maybe meet. I can talk to Sue during regular working hours and see about 21 issues I have are enforcement. Once again, okay, my employee tells me, Paul, this guy was off the wall. Okay, now, I write the guy a warning, the guy says, well, your employee was off the wall. Once again, it's a he said, she said kind of situation. Well, how do we proceed from there? I mean, the good thing with the incident Sue and I were talking about that happened last week is I have it on video, where she sent me an email, one of the residents, stating that this is what happened. The video doesn't show that happening as they say happened. My concern is, going forward, if the video doesn't capture this, and I'm thinking about adding more video cameras up there to protect my employees in the town, the video has to show somewhat of what these people are saying. It's not going to have audio. So once again, now I want to protect my employees and say none of them are cussing at these residents. But I have firsthand knowledge of being berated by residents where I wanted to throw a few cuss words their way. If you're and I deal with it for one day. These guys are dealing with it, like I said, on a daily basis. I mean, I like to start the conversation, but we need something with teeth, and we need something with teeth to happen. But the problem is, like you guys were saying, well, it's not the driver, the car that we just send somebody else. My employees are not going to sit there and say, okay, there's the car is the guy driving or the wife driving? That's kind of detrimental to what we're trying to retrieve up there.
Well, I guess from tonight, we're going to give you the support that you're going to need, as much enforcement as is needed. So I would say, I mean, you've got our thoughts, you've got that we're going to support you. Okay. That, I guess, with Sue and, town administrator Nancy.
Work on a policy.
Yeah, work on something, and, the least we can do is get the bylaw in.
Right, I will work on that for the warrant for next year.
Yeah, and get something now, and if that means immediately taking their stick away, if everybody think that's the best approach, then that's what will happen.
Well, and my concern is, okay, they come on a Saturday, my employee will call me and say, we have a problem. Monday morning I'll come in, I'll write the letter, send it certified. All right, now the resident wants to use a transfer station next weekend. Do I allow him to come in before he talks to me and the town administrator or a police officer, or how are we going to do that?
You're right, that could jam you up.
Right, I mean, June, July, and August, because the trash does turn a little faster because of the weather, it might expedite the issue. But I don't want to cause somebody an issue either because they had a bad day and they had a fight with their spouse and they took it all to my employees. I don't want that to happen either. Everybody has a bad day. But not once has any of these people, that, to my knowledge, that have gone off on my employees or myself, ever come back and say, you know what, Paul, we had a bad day, I'm sorry. And now the people are saying that my guys are trying to pick them out of the crowd, so they're feeling that they're getting picked on.
So it's not, well, not, some of these people, it happens frequently when they come in. It's not like you said, it might be someone with a bad day, which still isn't acceptable.
Right.
But it's typically happens a few times, not just once.
Repeat offenders?
On some instances, yes.
Okay, that's the word I was looking for.
Repeat offenders.
Sandy? Sandy.
We have a situation where the transfer station, how many transfer station stickers do we sell a year?
We sell approximately 3,400, 3,500 a year.
Yeah, 3,000 or 4,000 people, or actually probably more than that, because they have then drivers and stuff like that. Out of that, there might be, 10 or 15 individuals that are real troublemakers and have real anger issues and anger management issues. What we need to do as a board is, one, absolutely protect our employees. Two, send a message that that kind of conduct will not be tolerated. And three, put some teeth behind it. I don't want to inconvenience the 3,400 people that are behaving properly and doing their business. It's the 10, 15, or 20 that think that somehow, because they got a sticker, they outrank God. Those are the people that are the problem. And I think the more quickly we can address that, and set a standard, the more likely they are to comply or find another way to dispose of the trash.
Okay, Sandy?
It seems like it's an immediate problem, and we need an immediate action for Paul. And I think that we should probably give him the authority tonight to remove stickers from unruly and dangerous persons who come up against his employees and threaten them on a temporary basis. Take away the privileges on a temporary basis, In the meantime, we can work on the policy and get something going, but he needs something now.
Dick, what do you think?
I don't want to see the stickers removed. I'd rather see them standing right there where Paul is, and
But they won't come in, Dickie, and you know they won't.
They may.
then we do something, but, you know.
If I may,
Yes?
I think what we can do now is, if I have an unruly resident, I will send them a letter.
Why don't you call the, okay, if you have an unruly resident, call the police.
Well, see, and that's the problem is, when it happens, I only have one employee up there during the week. The other guy's driving. So the guy up the station is having a problem with the resident.
He's not at
He's interacting with the resident. He can't run up and get the phone and say, 911, we need a cop cruiser up here. It's always after the fact the resident leaves, after the resident disposes their trash. So, I mean, just brainstorming, I'm thinking maybe if I have an unruly resident, maybe I talk to Sergeant Muffin and say, Sue, let's go visit the angry resident and find out why they're so angry. I'd like to have the ability to at least have an offset. I got to talk to Chief Splain about this and get his input too. What I wrote here was just my thoughts of, I'd like to either get the town administrator or the police, a police officer. It doesn't have to be the chief of police, but usually when they have a badge and a gun, they might be a little less inclined to give grief.
I think we need to define bad behavior, criminal behavior, what's acceptable, definitions. I think that's an immediate thing. And you would need to, okay, if this behavior, I'd like to do that, and then get something
So
immediately
maybe we
as far as that
can
goes.
work together. Next week
Absolutely.
I'm on vacation, but the week after. I have no problem now. Like I had an issue today, I will send that person a letter and say, don't know what the problem is, but let's not have it again. If it happens again.
And we talked about
Right.
what is criminal. So
Yeah.
if it's criminal, you call the PD, and we'll come out and help you any way we can.
Right, I mean, tell my
Some things
employee
don't
I'll meet
amount
you
to
after
that.
the-
Then
after the hours.
then you're dealing with rude, and that's another issue. So,
Right, I mean, rude is not as demeaning as physical violence.
right.
But I don't see any other, I mean, you guys doing what you do in your job, at nighttime, some of the people you deal with could be unruly. My guys at the transfer station shouldn't see that kind of temperament applied to them at a transfer station over.
I
And
agree.
the problem is, it's not my employee's fault. These are the rules, folks. The Board of Selectmen have voted these rules. If you don't like the rules, go somewhere else. I'm sorry to be that blunt, but that's what I feel like right now. I've been a resident of this town for over 40 years. Residents used to take care of residents. When people were picking on people, people used to say, stop it. People drove by the video that her and I saw. People just drove by. Just didn't want to get involved. So does that encourage more bad behavior because there's no ramifications?
Well, one thing we might be able to do is, later on tonight, we're talking about cell phone policy. It might be simple to include your...
One.
so if they're not in the tower...
Right.
Yeah, I mean, even from a safety perspective, give them a couple of cell phones and they can react right away.
Well, they do have one cell phone up there, but that's usually on the trucks. So if they're driving, the
Yeah.
truck breaks down, that's why we have that there.
Yeah. Okay.
I would suggest as a matter of course, everybody operating the transfer station, every employee should have a cell phone for exactly that reason. If there's, and that's a reasonable security expense. It's probably a lot cheaper than ringing the place with cameras, but you want the sense of protection, that help, because the police will be there within moments if there's any issue or an emergency.
Okay, Sandy, anything before we wrap up?
Yeah, do you have the names and addresses of the top offenders?
I do have that information.
You do have that information.
you
So
like-
are you going to send them a warning letter
Would you like to send
I
that?
can send them a warning letter and say
and
that
include the fact that we discussed it tonight and we are going to come up with a policy and they may lose their privileges?
what I will do is I'll form a letter. I'll let Nancy look at it, oversee it. She can send it to whoever she needs legally wise. I want to make sure we do everything legal. Mm-hmm. And the issue about the cameras, Dennis, is two stand. One for the security, plus for liability. If we have cameras up there and somebody slips or falls, we'll have a video of that to protect the town's interests. I'm glad we had the video cameras up there to contradict what the two residents were telling Sergeant Moffett the other day. I am going to go forward with a request for more cameras up there when the new place is, just like I said, for both security and liability issues. Now, I went to the police department. I spent a couple of hours there this week talking to Sue, and I don't need as elaborate system as they have around their station. They need that for their purposes. I just want an eye on the compactors, because somebody could fall and somebody get injured. Just areas around where to see it. I don't need to see everybody's, pimples or what color their eyes are. I just want to get an overview of this transfer station as a whole. So I will still be looking forward to going to try to get some cameras. And from preliminary discussions, anywhere between a $3,000 and $5,000 basic for 4 or 5 cameras. So we're not talking a lot of money. I don't need to record forever. I like to have maybe a 14-day recording period, because if an issue pops up, I'll know within 14 days we can go back to the video. Then it just self-erases and just keeps taping it over. But I think video cameras up there is a plus.
Isn't that part of your overall plan? Isn't that part of your overall plan for that place?
Yes, and like you said...
So you already have the funding for that, right?
Well, no, because the video cameras that we have up there now, we purchased 7 years ago. Company's defunct, and we're having a little issues with the cameras, so... The money that we have for this project is just for the construction of the project. I will be forward in front of both the Finance Committee and the Capital Plan Committee to ask for additional equipment and stuff up there as budgets go forward.
Okay, Sandy, then we got a 7:30 appointment.
If the letter is all we can do right now, then you should work on that as soon as possible so that the turnaround time is quick. And by all means, if you can talk to the chief and see if he can station someone there, get his opinions on it, and, the safety of our employees is, everything in this. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Paul.
Can I have
Are
one
you
more
done?
minute?
Yeah, sure.
And this is a totally different note. This is the last time I'll be in front of the Board of Selectmen before we have a new town administrator.
No.
As a resident of the town of Kingston for over 40 years, a town employee for 18, and a department head for 12, I'd like to thank Nancy for everything she's done for the last, in my opinion, 3 years, but at least the last year and a half. We had a lot of issues, as everybody's aware of, this time last year, and I think with her being guided that the town was better off for it. That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Well said.
I'll second that.
Okay. Before the 7:30, I just want to ask if we can take something out of order, number 2, because it probably all segue into this. Number 2 for new business is the committee list. And since we're talking about the Green Energy Committee, this is a list of committees in town that we've just put together, actually in a meeting that Sue, Dick, and I went to last week with the Government Implementation Committee. They were talking about a few other things on the agenda, but committees, that we've got committees, they don't, there's no durations, there's no charges, things like that. So for tonight, we had a list of all the committees put together for us, and this is how many we have, pretty much. So just from a committee's point of view, because we had some discussions at the joint meeting, but it had been suggested that, going through this list of committees, seeing what is still active, what aren't, what has charges and what don't, because without a charge, you don't know the goal or the purpose of the committee. Durations, some of them, durations are indefinite. So what does the board think about taking that on as a project going forward? Dennis?
Yeah, I think that one of our responsibilities as a board, and I don't have the hourglass, I'm going to keep this short nonetheless, is good, sound management. And every board, and every commission, and every committee we create has to be for a specific purpose because they're representing the town. And what we've ended up with over a period of years through good intent is what I like to think of as legacy committees that are just kind of there, and they don't have a direct connection back to the appointing authority because there's no direct specific charge. And so what happens is we have an arm of town government that kind of makes up its own thing and somehow keeps the people out of the loop because we are directly responsible to the people. We are responsible for the committees that we appoint, the tasks that we assign to those committees, and the ability of the various committees to meet those tasks. If there is no charter, if you wish, or assigned mission for the committee that comes from this board and the people that put us here, it's a kind of a free-range committee. It's kind of just grazes around, and that is chaos. In any private business, you wouldn't have that. You wouldn't have a department that didn't have a function or a purpose. And I think, as Mr. Arruda has said in the past, wherever we can, make government more efficient, make it smaller, make it leaner. And that's what we need to do.
Any other comments? Okay, now, 7:30 appointment, a little late with the Mark Beaton Green Energy Committee.
Present.
Okay. I asked for a representative because basically what we got for last time, we had asked you for it, was a note stating that to reduce the committee from 7 to 5. And one other committee had asked to dissolve their committee and had a vote of the board. So that's more of, to take on, to do something like that, was it a board's committee, was there a vote to have that done, to reduce the committee? Because typically a committee would vote something like that. So it's more asking if the committee is the one making the recommendation to reduce it from 7 to 5.
My committee is present here tonight, and we do have a quorum. It hasn't been discussed at our meetings because of the lack of quorums. So I would entertain a motion to reduce the size of the committee. Gene, where'd you go? From 7 to 5, which will help hopefully guarantee a quorum. It's very frustrating when you have a committee and you don't get the quorums, and what happens is the problem can perpetuate itself where people might think, well, they're probably not going to have a committee, so they might not come. To get to the 5, which is a very engaged group, this 5 people, I think it'll be very streamlined. I think it'll be effective.
Okay, we've got 6 names on the committee, and you want to reduce it to 5. So unless one of the 6 resigns...
Well, Pine was resigned.
Right.
And the other person is Jim. It's not...
Is it Mike?
Mike, yeah. And Mike O'Mara, thank you very much. And I think what you have in your bylaws is that the chairman of a committee can ask for that person to be removed if he hadn't been in attendance for like 3 or 4 meetings or whatever. Well, it's been well over a year, so I will officially say that, Mike hasn't been president, and the 5 remaining members are active, and that would be the membership that I would propose. And not to, we wouldn't be, Mike would be off the committee, and he did a great job to get us where we were, and I thank him for his efforts.
How's any...
I can only echo what Mark is saying about being on a committee, that you have meetings for a year, and out of the 7 people, 3 keep showing up, and you don't get a quorum, and it's very frustrating, and that's why I made, at the Conservation Land Review, I made a recommendation to do away with it, because Pine resigned, and we just never did get a quorum. We did schedule a meeting every month, and the 3 of us were there, but it gets very frustrating. So,
Okay.
if I'd recommend that I make a motion that we do reduce it from 7 to 5 members.
Thank you, Richard.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And part of it, you fall into this committee category. Your members don't have durations, so we're going to want recommendations from the committee, because the board's going to be looking at it, and you have no charge.
Yeah,
So-
to that point, I understand what you're trying to do. Put things in writing, it's great. There was a charge that Ron Marabet, when he started this committee, they were looking at energy costs, how we consume and acquire energy, and impact on the future. And as a way to probably put something in your 3-ring binder, what the Green Energy Committee did in 2010, because I understand how businesses want to run, with a charge. We do have a mission statement that we as a committee voted on because we wanted to focus. And it's really simple, and we pretty much went with what Ron Marabet said, and we also changed the name of the committee because we couldn't remember the name. It was too long. But our mission of the Green Energy Committee is to promote and pursue sources of clean, renewable energy for the town of Kingston and the public and private sector. The Green Energy Committee will also investigate and propose conservation methods and fuel-efficient progress that will reduce the town's dependence on fossil fuel. The goal of the Green Energy Committee initiatives is to reduce carbon emissions while at the same time saving money for the town, residents, and businesses of the community. So we kind of put something in place to help us run our meetings, because sometimes we'd be going off in tangents that, would take us a lot of time and get away from what, really the focus of what the committee was.
Then why don't you pass that along?
I think I gave a copy.
Yeah, this one?
Yeah.
Okay. We can look at this in addition to that's what your committee feels it should be focusing on, and we can get input on,
Yeah, that was the vote of the board.
So,
Do we have to do anything about removing the other member? Vote on it?
yeah, why don't we, just to make it clean? Do you want to make that,
I'll make a motion to remove
Michael
Michael,
O'Mara?
whatever it is,
Michael
from the
Mara.
committee.
Second.
With thanks. With
Yeah.
thanks.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so you're down to 5. Michael Mara has been graciously thanked for his services. This is what you feel your mission is,
Yep.
and we'll put that with the rest of the committee things and look at those that charges and durations and everything else. If you want to give us something on what durations, because the roll-offs, 1, 2, 3 years.
I just recommend open-ended, on the appointments, because as long as somebody's willing to show up, which is really difficult to do, why tell them, at the end of a year, reapply? If you've got willing, warm-bodied, able people, you're a lucky
Like
committee.
I keep hearing, fresh ideas. So, Dennis?
Yeah, I'm absolutely opposed to open-ended appointments to any kind of standing committee, because there's a review process. Sometimes there's a recycling process. And we're not appointing popes. We're appointing human beings that serve in the duration of a term, and there's nothing wrong with it. Same thing. I'm elected for 1 year right now because I'm filling a 1-year vacancy. I personally would love if I was elected for life, but I don't think everybody else in town that didn't vote for me would like it.
I agree.
So that's the way it works. You have a set term, you have a set charge. And then if you've done your job on the set charge, you get another term. There's accountability.
Yeah.
So we'll work on that together.
And seeing as you brought me out on my night off, which I don't get many of them, just a couple of minutes, because I want to explain the charge of this Green Energy Committee as we saw it and what we've done. We did have our mission statement, which we took off of Ron Marabit's initial thought. But I'm going to tell you what we've done with our charge that we assumed. We've gotten $320,000 in grants because we're a green community. And that went into retrofits in the elementary school, the fire station, the police station. And I'm going to give you some paperwork that you can look at. There's numbers here, which is kind of fascinating.
I like numbers.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm giving it to you. You'll appreciate it. And you'll read it. So out of those grants, when we did those retrofits, we're saving $118,000 a year in the elementary school on utility costs. That's like 2 teachers. That's pretty exciting. So that's one of the things that this great committee has accomplished. Something else we've done is we have these solar trash cans that pick up rubbish and compact it. They're worth, thousands of dollars. That's something else. We have an electric charging station out here, so we're getting ready for the electric cars, which are coming slow. There's dollars amount to all of these things. Those grants and the energy savings, that's $440,000. The Independence turbine, whether you like it or not, we can not discuss that tonight.
Yeah, let's not.
But there's energy savings, which was $63,000. There's a lease, which was about $62,000. There's taxes, which is there's $142,000 that's generating off of the turbines. Fossil fuel is giving us a purchase power agreement of about $18,000, $17,900. Taxes of $55,000 per turbine, so that's $183,000. So if you take the grants and the money that we have raised in the last couple of years over $750,000. And this is a committee that's volunteers, that has a budget of $800 a year. Now, that money that goes into the coffers, not many committees actually raise money. They actually spend money because, they're in charge of, they have their own charge. But what else is happening is, of that $750,000, $500,000 of it is kind of like recurring funds that are going to keep coming in with percentage increase, because we have deals with a 1.5 increase on your PPAs and some of the lease agreements. But we have more stuff that we're looking forward to do. We want to do an energy audit for the town. They happened in Marshfield, and it worked out really well. They've come to one of our meetings, and they're meeting with the Green Fund Committee too, and we'll have something, probably for town meeting, because it might take a vote at town meeting. But the other thing is that we're really looking forward to when the town administrator comes in is an RFP to go out, request for proposal for the solar farms, because when that goes out, we're going to be the only, we're already way ahead of this. We'll be the only community in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that has a net zero carbon footprint, which means the energy we create will outfit all the water department, the highway department, the sewer department, the schools, the police, the fire. Everything will be a net zero carbon, which is a goal that crazy people have. But that's something that the residents of Kingston and this board can be really proud of. And on a last note, second last note, but if I'm not mistaken, when we sold this to the residents of the town of Kingston, there was a thought that the revenue that comes from the green dollars could kind of pay the bonding on this. There was discussion of that, which could really happen. I think there was a problem where legally you can't set aside money into a distant future because town meeting has to appropriate it each year. But that was a conversation that, those green dollars could take care of the
meals tax is taking care of that.
Well, we're reducing the taxes. And on the final, we could not have done this because we're volunteers without the help of Tom Bott, administrative help, and Nancy. Trust me, there's so much paperwork that was involved in everything we did, and it's still not a burden, but something that the state wants to see. Without those two key employees, we would have just been, lost souls without a captain at the ship that can, get us through the paperwork jungle, which for the state bureaucracy is really difficult. And thanks, Nancy, and Tom's not here, but, without their help, the efforts of the Green Energy Committee, the town's interest, they've been taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
And just come back and share with us so, people out there know what you're doing, what's going on, and there's no surprises. And you say you want to have something for town meeting. Well, share with us before town meeting. Like we had Paul come and tell us ahead of time about, the reconfiguration. The more education everybody has, the sooner, the better.
Now that I have 5 members, I'll do it. We've had one meeting since January, but now I get 5 members. And I can't communicate without a vote.
Okay.
I hear you.
Thank you. Sandy?
At one point, I think it was when I was chair, we were having the committees come in once a quarter and give us a report on what they were doing so that people could see where their tax dollars were going. And I'd like to request that we institute that again.
Yeah, Sue?
We had talked at the meeting, the Town Government Implementation Committee. There's so many committees. We really have to look at them, look at what's duplicitous, scale them back to what we need appropriately, maybe get them on a rotating basis.
That's what we had.
Yeah, so if we've got 33 committees divided by 12, and once a month, section it out to certain committees. So every February, this committee comes in. Every March, this committee comes in, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And get them on a rotating basis, and it'll be expected.
It was working well when we had it. I don't know why it fizzled out.
Well, let's scale them down first.
Yeah, good point.
And part of it, from simply a straight management standpoint, comes back down to what are the goals and objectives for this year? What's the plan for this year? Your committee is not an independent committee of the town. It is working on behalf of the town. It gives feedback to the town gives direction. And that level of communication, partly, I'm sure because of quorum problems and whatnot, has not happened. And that's why I'm talking,
No, we've had meetings all along.
have they been quorums?
If you're going to have a discussion, Mark, would you go back up there?
We have had meetings all along.
With quorum?
Literally hundreds of
With
meetings.
a quorum present?
No, lately we haven't had a quorum, but we do communicate, and I spoke to the board recently that we want to get that RFP for the solar farm out. That's our new project, and the second project we want to do is the audit for the rest of the buildings, because when we get the audit done, we can implement some of the other internal corrections on the building. So, we're communicating, we're not hiding, we have nothing to hide, showed you all the numbers, we're not trying to hoodwink anybody.
I didn't mean it that way.
I know you didn't.
I do want to stress, Madam Chair,
Yes.
is that in government, as opposed to just being a group of friends meeting at somebody's house, in government there has to be a paper trail, there must be a quorum present before deliberation and votes to mean anything can take place. You can have an agreement of a couple people. That's not the same, and Mark, you've served as a selectman. As a governmental body, there's rules, there's structure, there's accountability, and a paper trail when you meet in quorum. Okay. Minutes are taken, votes are taken, and then it's recorded.
And we've done that.
Yeah, except when you haven't been able to.
Okay.
Okay, now I don't want to...
Thank you.
No minutes.
Thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Dick?
Well, I just wanted to thank the Green Energy Committee for what they've done. And as Sue was saying, that we did, when we were speaking with the Implementation Committee, having those meetings again with these committees, and I think the people on the committees would like to come in once a quarter or whatever. It makes you kind of feel like, you're not just wasting that night that you spend with those other 4 or 5 people, and that, you get to validate what you're doing. Yeah, and I think they look forward to it. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Next section is on basically discussion with the Town Implementation Committee. They have a lot of recommendations, and we actually honed in on a few of them that night, and bringing them tonight to discuss with the full board on some of the items. And I have to say, it was good. We all seem to be on the same page for a lot of things. We talked about the technology approach. We talked about a lot of different topics, and we were pretty much in a same wavelength with the Implementation Committee. And some of the things we thought we could do a quick hit on is, one, the committees, that we need to go through them and really streamline and update and do what's necessary to make it more effective. The next one was, apparently it doesn't happen all the time, the town accountant is supposed to get copies of every grant and contract that's signed. And there was just a discussion that night that maybe, and it probably already is, and these are just ones that slip through, that a requirement of sign-off for anything would be to add the town accountant to it. And I know I've seen contracts that already have the town accountant's name on it, but just more of a procedural thing to that would make sure that the accountant saw the contracts.
Everything that's signed by the chief procurement officer, we require it also to be signed by Joan, so that's fairly routine. There are some pieces with elected officials that have put a signature on something that hasn't gone through that process, and that's about the only time that I'm aware of that happening. But Joan is, we're always shooting things over to Joan.
Exactly, so that's why these must be, if you're out there and you're doing contracts and you don't have Joan Paquette's signature on it, please check in with her, because she can't help administer the contract or the grant without knowing it exists. That's the only real purpose of it all.
She sets up a sheet to be able to track the funding, whether the funding's coming in and whatever goes out, so that at any time you can look up and see where you stand. So unless she has that information from the beginning, she can't set that up.
Okay. And the Implementation Committee talked as well about trying to resurrect the master plan and get that updated. The last time it was really given any attention was 1995, And things have changed since then, and the current townspeople may want things to be modified a bit going forward. So we've got that in motion. Gene Landis-Nauman reached out to the town planner, and he's going to be attending their meeting on August 7th to discuss the process and maybe get something together if we need town meeting to reestablish the committee, or, what the next steps would be so we can maybe get some action on the master plan. And then the third thing we discussed was the town administrator's job description. And I asked Nancy to give us a job description that was actually posted for the position of the new town administrator. And it's in our packet, and I don't know if that had ever been voted on formally as a board, so I just brought it forward because people are asking, well, what's the town administrator's job description? And without knowing whether or not this is this is what we use to post for it, so I'm guessing this is the most up-to-date, accurate.
I thought we did vote on it.
You may have.
Oh, yeah, that's right, you weren't here.
So
I don't believe there was a formal vote on it. What happened was the
voted not to change
implementation
it.
committee gave one.
Yeah.
We had the original one, and then members of the board provided input. All of that information was given to Mr. Gould, who then brought it to one of his professionals who write job descriptions. This is from all of that data became this job description. And although you've seen it, there was never a formal vote.
But we got it back, and after we got the two new members, I brought up the fact that I wanted to actually change it, and we made the vote. There was a vote taken to leave it as it is and not change it.
okay, to just
So do you want to confirm that?
confirm that this is the one that everybody agrees is the job description, because I hate to give something out to people who are asking for a job description if we don't all agree that this is the
Right.
one. Just it's more of a formality.
And can I ask a question about procedure? Is this a vote that Sue can participate in? It's administrative.
No, after he's hired. I'd say after he's hired.
Then I guess we'll keep the status quo for this vote and say no, right? No, what did you mean by that, after? Do you think you can? If you can, you can.
I can deal in any matters that do not involve hiring, firing, and discipline.
Oh, okay, then you're good.
But he hasn't started, so I don't want to,
Okay, let's not muddy the waters.
yeah.
Okay, after August.
Once he's on board, then I
Okay.
can deal with evaluations, I can deal with goals, objectives, things like that.
Make a motion that we approve the job description for the town administrator that was provided us in our packets.
And any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good. Now, if anybody wants a copy of it, we can provide that. Okay. Next, we have, and this, I'm going to turn this part of the meeting over to Sue, because it involves positions at the wastewater treatment plant. So I'm going to recuse myself, step down from the table. It's for actually a promotion for a laborer to a wastewater treatment plant operator, and then to fill that vacancy. Ken Vandell is in the audience, the superintendent, to answer any questions you may have. So,
Are you jumping over number 2?
committee list. Oh, I didn't. Do you want to talk that? Can we do that?
No, I just want to know if you're changing the order.
She had.
Okay, that's fine.
Unless you want to talk more about it.
No.
Okay, then I'm stepping down.
Do you want, you're here just for questions?
I'm only here to answer questions.
Okay, all right. So we received a letter from the Board of Sewer Commissioners, and I'll just read it out loud. Dear Board of Selectmen, we are writing to announce that at our meeting of July 8, 2013, the Board of Sewer Commissioners unanimously voted to recommend Jonathan Bond for the position of wastewater operator and pump station technician. Superintendent Kenneth B. Vandal also recommends Jonathan Bond's appointment to this position. So my only question at this point would be, was it posted? Did we follow all the rules?
Madam Chair?
It was posted.
Yes.
Would it be appropriate to make a motion to follow the recommendation of the sewer commissioners and appoint Jonathan Bond to the position of wastewater operator and pump station technician.
Sure.
Second.
And then for the discussion, I would just say, just to make sure that it was posted.
It was
and-
posted appropriately, and he applied. It's a promotion for
Can I
Mr.
ask a
Bond.
question about, did we lose a wastewater operator pump station technician?
No, this is a new position that the board agreed to back several months ago.
Okay.
So we had already lifted the hiring freeze.
Right.
Okay.
It had to wait till July 1st for funding.
Any more discussion?
Move.
We'll take a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we also need the board to lift the hiring freeze to fill the vacancy that Mr. Bond was a laborer. Would like to post that to be filled.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? Let's take the vote.
Aye.
All four? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Elaine, if I could interject something here that goes along with a couple of things we've just discussed.
Yep.
Okay. At several of the previous meetings, I mentioned something called the Code of Civility from other towns. And after Paul spoke, and after some of the other things that have happened in town recently, and after all the complaints I've been getting about certain things that have been happening, and the rough time we've had over the last couple of years, I did put it together. And I'd like to pass it out to the board, have them review it for a later date to discuss.
Sure.
But I just want to read one part of it. The town of Kingston's municipal government values respect, integrity, civil behavior, and expects that all employees, members of all boards and committees, those representing the town and members of the public in attendance at town-sponsored events or meetings shall act with such respect, integrity, and civil behavior. It is our earnest desire to work collaboratively with fellow employees, committee and board members, and all members of the public on this issue and in this manner. It is our desire to serve our residents and each other in as efficient and professional manner as possible. This cannot and will not be done without civility and respect towards each other, toward each person encountered. As your Board of Selectmen, we are committed to providing the public with the highest level of services delivered in the most efficient manner using any and all resources that are available to us. As public officials, we are committed to assure that all who enter into our buildings, gather at any event, and during all public discourse shall be treated with respect, professional behavior, and civil speech. Blah, blah, blah. Goes on and on. Then it lists a section for civility, a section for integrity, a section for respect, ethics, communication, and teamwork. And I'll just read the one for respect. All persons shall be treated in a fair and equitable manner without exception. No employee, member of any board, commission, or committee, or person representing the town of Kingston shall at any time, for any reason, raise his or her voice, demean, or purposefully embarrass any person in any town building, on any town property, or at any meeting, presentation, event, or similar sponsored by the town. In turn, any person doing business in town buildings or at any town event shall be similarly respectful to all others in attendance and those responsible for the event. And each section is very similar to that. It's only one page. I'd like the board to consider it. And, you know, I think back to when we had to put in as-of-right farming. It's ridiculous in this day and age, and in the town of Kingston, that we have to have a right to farm. You know, it's ridiculous that we need a code of civility, but we do.
Yeah, it falls into what Paul did come for. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
It's those few who, on the public side and on the town official side, record for the others. And I think this is an important thing. I actually did run some of this by, the idea of it by Labor Council. It does give us a little teeth, even for elected officials who start acting up.
Oh, good.
or are disrespectful. We can go back to this. And I understand we do have a code for the employees, but this goes a little bit beyond. So with your permission, I'd like to hand it out to the board members.
Sure, and we can put it on the next agenda, which is July 30th. Okay.
Just make a very short comment. I think that the idea of having a code of civility, I agree with Sandy, is probably, it seems weird that we even need that, because it used to be civil behavior went with citizenship. But I think reminding everybody that we all hold each other to the same standard. We don't hold any board to a different standard than we hold ourselves to.
So we'll be able to discuss it in more depth at the next meeting.
And after we discuss it, it would have to go to Labor and Town Council, because, of course, we don't want to jeopardize anyone else's rights.
So,
We do have a code of conduct.
Yeah, we do. I know.
You can marry the two, and,
No, I think they should be on top of it. I really do. In addition.
yeah, them.
Where are the details?
Okay. I just want to go back to John Bond. I have to say this. He's worked for the wastewater treatment plant for many, many years as a laborer. He worked very hard to get his promotion to a plant operator, and well-deserved. He passed the state test, and thank you, John, for everything you've done. Sorry, I had to say that. Okay, appointments. We have 2 openings for the Community Preservation Committee. We have 2 applicants, Ken Mualley and Christine Hoffman. We have, I believe one term is 3 years and the other term is 1 year. So, would we want to discuss the...
we don't know who wants what.
No, but Ken can't make it tonight, and is Christine Hoffman here?
It's actually Christian.
Oh, gee.
It's all right, people have been doing that for ages.
I'm sorry, and I even know a Christian, so that I apologize.
No problem.
Then would you mind coming and sharing with us why you'd like to be on the committee?
Hello, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. This was kind of sprung on me last moment. I was helping Joe Chetwin and Jack Burry volunteering, working on the Backlajou, and I'm a preservation carpenter, and I was standing there working in the shop one day, and Jack says to me, I've recommended you to Marilyn Causadoy to serve on the Community Preservation Committee. And I said, well, that sounds great. What's that? So I researched it a little bit, and a lot of the things they advocate for are what drew my wife and I back to Kingston last August. We moved up here from Maryland. And so I have a strong preservation background. I've done a lot of historic research. I've been a business person for the last 13 years as well, and so it seems like a good fit. It's something I'm interested in. I don't know, in light of all the talk of shrinking committees, I don't know whether you're looking to add or not, but it's something that I really wouldn't have considered at all. I didn't even know there existed one, but it seems like a really interesting organization, and if you're looking for a new spot to fill it, I'd be happy for the opportunity.
This isn't one we would shrink, so...
Oh, good. Okay.
Yes, so we will still have 2 positions available. Do you have a preference yourself on any time commitment that may want you, be better serving 1 year or 3 years, or do you have a preference?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't served on a public committee before. I've always been interested in doing it. I've been close with a lot of people who have. I guess I'd feel more comfortable with a year to start out with and see how it fits in. And I don't know. I'm glad to see it's an at-large position. Is that correct? That it's an at-large? Yeah.
Yes.
Because I don't. I have some specific knowledge about certain things. Historic preservation is one of them. But as far as I have a broad knowledge, but I don't know whether it's deep enough that I'd be a good fit for like a finance committee person or something like that. So I think that an at-large position would be great for me to kind of get my feet wet and understand procedure.
And that's good. In having a wide view on things is handy for this this committee, because it's historical, it's open space, it's recreation, and it touches a lot of, community involvement items in town.
Yeah, it does. And like I said, my wife grew up here. She's a graduate of Silver Lake. I grew up in Chelmsford, Mass., but we've lived in Maryland for the last 14 years. And we kind of wound up in a good situation moving back here. But one of the things that appealed to me about the area was the open space and then the conservation lands. I take my kids on walks all the time. But it seems that and finding out that they're responsible for that, and then my son played Little League, and I said, wow, this is an unbelievable facility. I mean, there's all these things that I'm sort of discovering as I go. We've only been here 11 months or so. But the challenges of open space and urban development are something I've been involved with quite a while, and more of a observational kind of view, but it's kind of an important challenge to recognize economic and business and private concerns, but also maintain the land use and the historical heritage that also draws people to an area. So I think it's an interesting endeavor.
Any questions for Christian?
No, I'll make a motion to appoint him to the one-year position.
Dennis had a question.
And I just wanted to say that I want to thank you for stepping forward. That's exactly new involvement, fresh perspectives is what keeps Kingston going. It's what keeps our whole system as essentially volunteer government working. Thank you.
No problem. Appreciate it.
Sandy?
I'll make a motion to appoint Christian Hoffman to the one-year position for Community Preservation Committee.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And I guess I should just be in touch with Marilyn, I suppose?
Marilyn, Craig Dalton's actually the chair.
Okay.
We'll send you an appointment form, and you have to be sworn in with the town clerk.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you'll just, nice to meet you, Nathan. So you'll just, somebody will be in touch with me and let me know what's
Right.
next? Great, all right.
Welcome to
you.
Kingston.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, the next opening then would leave the 3-year appointment for, we have the one applicant, Ken Mualley.
So moved. Second.
Discussion will be me. I thought Ken was going to be here today until we got the note from him that he wasn't. I really want to talk to him about his time allocation, because the last time he was on the committee, he needed to leave, a couple of weeks before town meeting. And I just want to make sure that he has a 3-year commitment. If we can just postpone until the next meeting.
I would prefer that if the motion will withdraw to hold it for the next meeting.
I'll just say that I don't think he would have applied if he couldn't make the commitment. I know he stepped off previously, but...
Okay, it's up to the...
We can hold off on it.
It's up to,
Doesn't matter.
You can vote if you want. That's just my discussion points.
I'll withdraw it.
Hold it over the next meeting.
Great.
Okay, we'll hold it over. And we have an appointment to the Commission on Disability, Pamela Thorpe. Okay.
Is she here?
No, we didn't ask her to come.
Okay. I'll make a motion we appoint Pamela Thorpe to the Commission on Disabilities.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Next, we have the town cell phone usage. And this was just a policy, like Sandy speaks of, to update and really find out, make sure that those employees who need cell phones have cell phones in the capacity that they would need them. And Nancy provided a list of department heads who have cell phones right now.
Right, there's one correction, the water department has 2, not 3.
Okay, just so everybody knows, the assessors, Jim Judge has one, the town administrator has one, Board of Health, Henny Walters has one, the wastewater department has 2 for the superintendent, 3, superintendent, the assistant, and the on-call employee. Water department has 2, highway has 3, Paul Basler, Jeff Bond, and the trash hauling vehicle. And this may be a good opportunity to speak about
Right.
adding some for the...
We could add cell phone only, not a data phone. The other phones are data phones. We could
Okay.
just do, and it's only $10 a month to add a phone.
Oh, okay.
So can I ask a
I'll
question
move that
about
we add
the
a cell phone to Mr. Bass's
crash hauling one?
account.
Is that located within the vehicle?
No, he takes it into the vehicle, and most of the time, when they're hauling, they take the truck, they use
Right.
that phone, so that it
So he's
stays in
got-
the
he
vehicle.
does-
It goes
Did-
off property.
Right.
It's
So
off the
this
property.
this employee, though, has accessibility to that phone at all times?
The person in the vehicle, when they're driving the vehicle,
And then what happens to it when he gets back?
it usually stays in the vehicle.
That's what I asked. Does this phone stay in the vehicle? Okay. So why do we not put that phone in the transfer station office so it's available to the other employees? And then when he needs it,
Because it's...
If he's hauling, he
half
has
the
it.
time
Well, he can take it.
it's
Yeah, but
being
then-
hauled.
But then you'd have no phone.
They
for
go to
the-
CMAS, that's a haul. He's 2 or 3
fine.
hours, he's
So
gone.
I'm just saying, use this as an extra phone. Get him the new one, yes, absolutely. But also use this in the office also, in case there's 2 employees there who need phones. Don't leave it in the, I'm just saying, don't leave it in the truck.
I don't think it's in the truck.
You just said it was in the truck.
Well, it's clipped to the guy driving the truck.
yeah,
It's a-
whoever-
It's like your iPhone, it's clipped on him.
I think the concept of, we kind of touched on this when Paul was here earlier with the problems at the transfer station, is just to have 2 or 3 duty phones that simply stay at the transfer station. Probably no calls are ever made on those unless there's an emergency or something like that. If you're on duty, you have a cell phone on your person. When you're off duty, you just drop it back in the trailer. That's it, they're duty phones.
Yeah, I mean,
That's probably what they do. They probably leave it on a charger in the trailer up there,
Yeah.
but when the guy's in the truck, he's just got it on a belt clip.
And the same thing, if you're on duty at the transfer station, you have a cell phone on you that you got from the trailer.
Right.
okay.
And when you leave, you just put it back in the charger and whoever else is on duty.
Do we have to vote that?
No,
I was just
it's
gonna
a
say-
budget thing, we'll
Yeah.
take care of it.
To have Nancy just check with Paul to see how many they think they need.
I think it's like 3 is, I think, the max I've seen at the transfer station.
Yeah. So, okay. Building Department, Paul Armstrong has one, the Harbor Master has one, the police have 6, the Fire Department has 2. Right now, those who do not have cell phones that are out in the field is Maureen Thomas Conservation and Tom Barton Planning. And I had asked Nancy if it's easily identifiable if, per cell phone, if you exceed the limit for that cell phone, whether it be data or calls, to the point that I was going to say, talking to, about these cell phones with the department heads, it was, well, I don't have to carry 2 cell phones because I have my personal phone and then I would have my work phone. So I was going to say, if they have the work phone and if perchance they exceed the limit allowed and payable by the town, that they pay the difference.
Yeah, nobody has done that.
Yeah.
It's, they're calling plants, and in most cases, departments with multiple phones share minutes, and with the exception of 2 that I emailed you about that did not have a text plan, which we'll add, there was no overage for anybody.
Sandy first, then Dennis.
As for the conservation agent, as someone who does those inspections for work, I can tell you that being in a field of multiple acres alone without a cell phone is a very dangerous situation, especially with all the coyotes we have in this town. And, God forbid anything else should happen, if she falls or whatever.
In the
It's
case
really
of Maureen, she uses her own.
Yeah, she uses her own. That's why I said, maybe we can make a compromise here and have her only have one cell phone. And if she does over the minutes, then she pays the town, reimburses the town.
I would say,
So are you saying issue her one?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Dennis?
I was going to just say, as a policy, no town employee should go into the field without a cell phone, either their own or a town-issued one, for their protection, for the town's protection, if you have an emergency or a problem.
There's a lot of employees that don't carry cell phones that are out in the field. You've got an entire police department, you've got an
Well, no,
entire
I'm
fire
not,
department.
they have police radios that works as
What if it doesn't work?
effectively. You call 911.
My radio doesn't work everywhere. Just be cautious.
Well, for now, we can just, Nancy made some recommendations to put into the current cell phone usage policy. And basically, they say to, town-issued cell phones and associated equipment are provided and paid for by the town, for town business only. Costs shall not be incurred beyond the current plan, including minutes, text, and picture messages. Here, costs incurred beyond the current plan will be the responsibility of the employees unless it is demonstrated that the cost is attributed to town business, and bills shall be submitted to the town administrator, and the wireless equipment remains the property of the town. I'm fine with those updates.
Those are all good.
And, what about, giving Maureen Thomas and Tom Bott a town cell phone with the understanding if there's an overage, then they cover that. And if that's what, at least offer it to them.
Do we need a motion?
I think that's another budget.
Right now, it's not a budget item. We would cover it right for now out of the Karen Municipal Buildings phone budget. And then we'll have to make, if they both take them, we'll have to make an adjustment when we do budget planning.
Okay.
But do you want a motion to
Except
redo the policy?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll add in the 2 cell phones anyways, just to cover us. Okay. I'll make a motion to accept the suggested amendments to the wireless cell phone usage policy as listed in our packet, and to issue cell phones to the conservation agent and the planner.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's all that's on the agenda. Anybody have anything else they want to discuss or anything before someone makes a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
I did have actually one thing. One tiny little suggestion. Are we going to have a meet and greet for the new town administrator for the public? I think that's important for when he starts. At the first meeting, perhaps, before the first meeting?
Reception.
A reception for the new town administrator to meet the public and have them come in and...
Why don't we talk to him and, I don't know, we want to, well, if we have it during the day, there won't be that many.
No, if we have it just before the meeting, like half an hour before the meeting.
The
Yeah.
6 o'clock one time frame?
Just coffee and tea, period.
Okay, so our first meeting that the town administrator will be attending, we'll have a 6 o'clock meet and greet?
Sure. That would be great.
Okay,
I'll make that motion.
okay.
Second.
That's where the...
Wait, we already have a motion on the floor.
Can't make it.
What?
I'm just being sarcastic. I said the people from Boston won't be able to make it.
At 6 p.m.
Okay, we already have a motion on the floor to adjourn, so we'll just take that as,
A suggestion.
yes. Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn, we have a second by Dennis.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
See you in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Oh, I did.